Hey Matt,
Hello again, Bill. How are you
good.
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
It's one of my favorite things to just like wait for you awkwardly before I do the actual intro to this podcast, which we need to figure out the intro to this podcast.
I was wondering if you're going to even remember that we talked about this last time, that there does need to be an intro to the podcast.
We'll work on something. We'll workshop something in the text thread. We'll get it.
Well,
Suffice to say,
dear
hello
dear
and
listeners,
welcome.
to our dear listeners, all 26 of them, we promise we will have a an intro for this podcast, a verbal intro. Let's not promise music, right? Let's be
Yeah,
clear.
no,
We're not that sophisticated.
that is a lot of effort for me to put in. Trying to find the way to like export this recording is very difficult. And you're my good friend, Macon Stokes, has mentioned like, yeah, it is not easy to export. So all that
We're
suffice to say,
we're working really, really hard to produce this
yeah,
podcast
yes,
for
behind the
for all
scenes.
of you. So you'd better enjoy it.
Suffice to say, thank you so much for joining. Welcome to Bullship with Bill and Matt. Again, this is gonna be maybe episode 3. I don't know. Our recording schedule's kind of all over the place. Uh, Bill and I were just talking before we hit record. We wanted to have some good stuff, some normal chatter about Texas, where I live, being 80 degrees right now, and my slow northward march towards the beautiful climes of like having 4 seasons.
To clarify, right now is end of October, almost
Yes,
Halloween, very close to Halloween.
almost. Yeah.
Do
Halloween is
you?
my wedding anniversary, Bill. Like the day, October 31st.
I was going to ask. Well, I mean, you have kids, so I'm sure you're just stuck trick or treating. Happy
Yes.
almost anniversary, but
Thank you.
I'm going to ask if you do anything special for Halloween.
We go trick or treating.
Yeah,
That's what we do. Yeah.
of course. Yeah, same. Do you dress up?
Yes, you great. This is fantastic, Shatter. You have stumbled upon a great subject that you didn't
Nailed.
realize was very deep. Do I dress up? Yes, and I dress up as the same thing every year. Although this year in particular, I won't be able to dress up because my costume is in storage because I've been trying to move.
Oh no.
But so the answer to your question, do I dress up? Yes, I dress up as a pilot. So like I have a friend of mine in the Marines had a flight suit he gave to me as a present. I wear my Marine Corps like badge, my little Velcro badge thing that like indicates like who I am, and I am continually and always the most scary of Halloween costumes. Your unrealized childhood dreams, because I I wanted to be a jet fighter pilot in the Marine Corps. My life's trajectory was to that. Then like senior year of college, on the like doorstep of it, the Marines went, "No, you're never and no, and to that beyond that, you're never going to be a pilot. Like medically speaking, you cannot be a pilot for the Marine Corps." Like just hopes and dreams dashed. And so every year I cosplay as my unrealized childhood dreams.
And
So
then you
there you
go
go,
home,
Bill. That was the answer to your question.
and then you go home that night, put your kids to bed, and eat your kids' candy and cry yourself to sleep.
Not all of their candy because I have standards, but will my children ever know how delicious Twix taste? No, never, because I will intercept them, right? In one of my favorite SNL skits of all times is when I forget who it is. He is playing as Bill Clinton in the McDonald's, and he's talking about like food getting intercepted by warlords, and I am the warlord intercepting all of the kids' Twix. And then like Twix, number one, they will never understand the glory of Twix. One step down is Kit Kats, and I like those will be decimated.
I'm on board with you for Twix, but Kit Kats, like I can leave those to the kids. I'm with you on Twix. I will. The Twix are high value for me. I
Yeah,
tend more toward the peanut butter based things.
like Reese's, don't
Oh
you?
yeah,
Ugh.
they know that. In fact, we've been trunk or treating and they've already delivered for me. They know this.
Reese's are my wife's favorite candy. So yeah, like both of us will individually snag all of the Reese's, all of the Twix. The kids will never get those. They're always intercepted by the two warlords that run their lives. So yeah, that's where we're at for Halloween. That's yeah,
Smart.
yeah. And then like for me, I will venture into the realm of peanut butter based foods because I think that Reese's Pieces are superior to the Reese's Cups. That is just me. I know that is an unpopular opinion,
Well,
and
no,
you're going
well,
to
so
reach down.
I do disagree with you. I think the cups are better, but I have, for those listening, I have 3 packages here of Reese's Pieces, full size. We
Beautiful.
are a full bar house, by the way.
Wow.
We don't
Like,
get a lot of because we don't get a lot of trick or treaters, and we would like
mm,
more. So
okay.
we're trying to spread the word. We want kids to know that they should come to our house because we have full bars.
Wow. Making that rich man's Massachusetts salary up there.
That
It's
was
tougher
not
times down here in Texas,
that
Bill.
was not the intent.
It's fine. It's okay. It's fine. It's
All right, all
no
right,
hurt
but yes,
feelings for me.
it's true. We are. I'm an East Coast elite. I can't help it.
You are,
I
yes.
just own it. Yeah.
You think that you're better than me with your sweatshirt. That's fine. It's okay. It's okay. You're with your Four Seasons and your apple cider donuts. I don't even need you. We have brisket and tacos.
Cider donuts, though.
I know. I want it so badly.
And speaking of Four Seasons, Matt, maybe we could actually talk about supply chain. That this is as our listeners know, or maybe have heard us say.
Ostensibly, this is a supply chain
This is a
podcast.
supply chain podcast, yes. And we wanted
Yes.
to talk. Speaking of seasons, we wanted to
Yes.
talk about Q4 and peak season.
Yes.
Right. And the reason, and so this is going to be another, buckle up, folks, because this is going to be another Matt episode. The reason being, which is weird to say, because as you know, I work for a toy company.
Yes.
So, right, peak season is, right, I mean, Q4, we do, I forget, like 50% of our business in Q4. But we're also a huge company, and I'm in analytics. And that being the case, yes, people come to me for numbers during Q4, but I've always been a little bit buffered from the effects of Q4 because I've never really been like on the front lines.
Oh yeah.
As you say, like getting my hands dirty, and which I know is what you love to do since you are not a pilot.
Yes.
And I don't mean to rub that in,
No, you're fine.
But I thought it'd be really good to hear some of your stories and anecdotes and best practices, tips, what not to do during Q4, because we're in it right now, and maybe one of our listeners could actually come away with this from this podcast having learned something that they could even apply to their actual lives.
Heaven forbid that anyone walk away from this podcast with anything resembling like wisdom and or knowledge, and potential guidance for the future.
We could try it. We could try.
Yeah. I will do my best. I know that I don't know if you listen to our podcast after I've posted them, but the port strike actually was surprisingly detailed and full of my own knowledge and wisdom. I took a lot out of hearing myself say it, so I don't know. Yeah, that was me.
And I think I closed the podcast saying the same thing, that I was surprised to learn anything from you at all, let alone as much as I did. So let's do it again. What do you have for me for Q4? When did you guys start planning Q4? Okay, wrong question. Like, you just start talking.
Months ago, Bill. Months ago.
Of course.
All right, so Q4 as a thing is kind of a weird deal, and I'm going to stop saying Q4. I'm going to start saying peak season, because everyone has different peak seasons. That's sort of its own deal. Peak, you plan for peak all year long, right? If once you get out of peak, in my case, like generally January, you're back into planning again, right? In some form or fashion, because you're trying to get new rates, because GRI, like general rate increases, happen with your parcel carriers. We're trying to figure that out. Right, what's the right mix of carriers to use, and then also right around that January timeframe, you're putting your orders back into your vendors to make more stuff, because Chinese New Year happens either at the end of January, beginning of February, and so like you're kind of in this like weird, like sales aren't high, but I'm still in this peak environment because everyone is doing the same thing, trying to refill and restock. So you kind of live in that until February. Then February like starts kind of calming down. But you're basically always shifting your pieces to try and get your peak season right. There's a lot of things in that, but you kind of go into February, March, April, and then you'll hit the doldrums of like June, July, August. Doldrums. And that's where you're really what?
So there is a downtime because the way you started this makes it sound like you're just going 12 months of the year.
Yes. So in June is probably June. My birthday is probably the like calmest month in the supply chain for about everyone. There's not a whole lot going on. There's no big holidays that you're pushing sales towards, right? You've kind of done all of your like Mother's Day and Valentine's Day and all of that other stuff has happened earlier in the year.
For supply chain,
Everyone's out for summer.
let's say for most consumer goods, right?
Yes.
Because I
Yes.
mean, there's plenty of people who are busting it for right. Summer's coming up, so there's I'm
Yes.
sure, and I don't know anything about those industries,
Right. Yeah.
right? But
The slip and slide manufacturers are probably just like wailing and gnashing their teeth of like, how do I get this vinyl to wherever? Right? Yes, that is true. Again, everyone's peak season is different. Everyone has a different thing. The slip and slide manufacturers are just ramping into June. Me
sunscreen,
personally, calm down. Like
nice.
I'm very relaxed in June. I'm bored in June. July really starts like now we're starting the peak like officially we are planning because we're looking at sales data from the first half of the year to make assumptions for the back half of the year, for second half. And we're placing orders to our factories to produce stuff, right? Because the typical like production time, maybe a month or so, depends on right a month to 6 weeks, depending on like how your manufacturers are like able to do stuff.
Right.
So
Depends a lot on your lead times. Then is
yeah,
is
yeah,
what you're saying here. Yeah.
correct.
As long as I've interjected, I just want to also comment that that it's funny for me to hear you say that July is when things start to ramp up because I work for a Danish company, and
Yeah,
I don't know what you know about Denmark, but they have basically 6 weeks of good weather a year, and the rest of the time it's just rainy and miserable.
yeah,
And most of those 6 weeks take place in July. And so Denmark just shuts down in July. So what you just said for June, that is my July. There's just
yeah.
nothing happening because basically all of headquarters is closed down. And then
That's fair.
and we're in the Northeast, so we take August off. And so
Yeah,
September is when we really start to hit the ground running with Q4. But it's just it's fun to hear you say this because I mean the thing about supply chain, right? Everybody says
yeah.
it's so different. Everyone has their own little idiosyncrasies, and it has to do with so many different things.
When you said you worked for a Danish company, I really was racking my brain in the like 2 seconds
You're thinking
for
about
a
pastry
pastry
cornflakes.
joke.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I couldn't find one, so I just let you keep going. But I wanted to let everyone know that's where my mind was going when you said Danish. But yes,
if if we had editing capabilities or
yeah,
time and interest in editing these things, we would have
we do
inserted
not.
a joke right there. Yeah.
We
All right.
we and I do not. Yeah, Europeans are also they're really fun. They take the entire summer off. It's great. Like they just stop working, whatever. Great,
Yeah.
fine. So me personally, right? You East Coast elites, you can afford to wait until September. I cannot. We in the Gulf Coast, hardworking blue collar America, we are working in July to get ready for our peak season. So August and September will start the inbound peak time frame, right? So you'll start seeing freight forwarders assigning like peak surcharges on the inbound volume as it's coming in, because everyone, maybe not everyone, most people are purchasing stuff, getting it into the U.S., and so like the inbound movement on the ocean gets to start being constrained, which is why the ILA strike was at such a terrible time. Everyone was concerned because like peak volumes are already here, right?
Yep.
So I've had stuff that got stranded, not stranded, but it got delayed on
Yep.
the West Coast because of those kind of compounding factors. So that's what you're typically doing. August and September is moving volume into the US, getting it to your warehouse, and then you'll start seeing a lot of sales beginning in October. So October is kind of the last like get all your ducks in a row, make sure you have everything ready, and then November hits. So like you'll see some people will start doing sales in October to try and draw a bit of that peak volume forward and give themselves more time to kind of be in it. And then November hits and you're running, right? A lot of sales have started getting pulled forward in November pre Thanksgiving pre-Black Friday to help ease some of that demand and really shape demand in a way that like is sustainable and that you can kind of ramp up.
When you say these sales are being pulled forward, you're talking about B2B sales? Or you're saying that consumers are actually coming in early?
Consumers, yeah. So
Really?
I have a great on my YouTube channel, Low Budget Logistics, which is where this is actually also going to be posted. Of
I've heard of it.
a great video about demand shaping. What retailers are doing, like B2C retailers are doing, is trying to say like, hey, let me shape demand in a way where I'm not getting slammed in the 4 days between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Let me try and pull that forward, right? Because the expectation is if a consumer wants something, that demand is finite, right? In the way of like the example I gave in that fantastic video that you should all go and watch that might be linked to in the description below if our editor is on board, is my son has a want. He wants a Paw Patrol like action playset. He wants the aircraft carrier. He will not get it because I don't make Bill Shube money. But he has the max demand of that item for my house is one. Only one is going to get purchased. When that one thing gets purchased, either in December or November, it doesn't really matter to the company. It's a finite amount. And so they would rather have that purchase occur earlier in the season to be able to restock and replenish on the backside, in case, right, there is more, right? Because again, you've got a very limited amount of time to sell stuff to get it under the tree. That's really like what we're all kind of trying to do. And so
Yep.
a lot of you'll start seeing sales have become earlier in the year as retailers are starting to realize that. Really kind of driven by Amazon, which is why Amazon Prime Day is earlier in the year, is to capture a bit of that back half demand and push it forward into the year.
So I was going to ask actually to clarify, so, right, because we as businesses don't have any control over the consumers, or at least no direct control, right? I mean, Amazon has basically brainwashed everybody, but that's
Yes.
another story. So, but there are levers that we can pull to try to encourage these sales to take place earlier, and it's mostly in the form of advertising and discounts, I assume.
Yep, sales are the best way you can do that. So you'll drop a sale early, and then that's kind of you'll start being into it, right? I have worked at other retailers where we had a big sale, and everyone knew, employees, customers knew, once this sale hits, that is the beginning of the holiday sales period, and so like we were in it, and that's kind of what we're doing right now, right? November will be a big sales period, and then we will ramp into the rest of the time. I do want to stop and pause because the last pod we did not get to this. We need to talk about our advertiser, right? Our this is how we make the money on this podcast. Bill, do you have anyone that you want to plug in the next minute?
Other than Amplifier and our good friend Macon Stokes?
Yep. Anyone else? Because I will plug Macon and Amplifier. Did you bring anyone to the table?
I've not brought anyone to the table yet.
Okay.
I could certainly. I know of somebody who could be interested. So I'll put a pin in that one, okay. Folks. We'll possibly have another sponsor next
free advertiser
when next we speak. Yes, but for now it is our good friends at Amplifier.
Our fantastic friends at Amplifier. They do a wonderful job of fulfillment during the holiday season and beyond. I have worked there during the holiday season. They are fantastic. I highly recommend Amplifier. The folks there are great, and you should go to Amplifier. They are a 3PL. They are primarily business to consumer, business to customer focused. They do a lot of really great job. They do a lot of really fantastic things. They have a lot of capabilities that you would not think of normally. So please go to amplifier.com, I think is their email address. I'm the best at plugging them. Macon, thank you for being a friend. And that is our plug for this show. Back to the topic. So in November, you will start to get very busy. And November, the beginning of November, is really where we'll start to talk to carriers and say, hey, this is what I'm actually projecting to have volume going out. This is the physical space that I need. Really, November is a little bit late to be doing that. You should do that in September and October. letting your carriers know how much space you're expecting, or that you're really going to need, and that's based off of sales, marketing, and whatever else. That's where folks like Bill Shube get paid the big bucks to forecast and analyze. And I'm just kind of hitching a ride on their wonderful coattails. And then in November, like once you get to Thanksgiving, you've got the day of Thanksgiving to relax and be with your family, and then you're gonna be swamped. Uh, and the best way that I can kind of explain is like you work, right? NFL teams work all year long towards the one goal of going to the Super Bowl. That is the like drive of their season. And the drive for us is Black Friday to Cyber Monday. Those 4 days are extremely important. And you work all year long to get to that. That's my Super Bowl. I'm busy. Sometimes I have been known to start work at 3:30 in the morning of Black Friday. I would be driving to work and I would work an 8 to 10 hour shift in the warehouse on Black Friday. And I will be checking emails. I will work over that weekend. Like it is just expected. My wife, family, everyone knows like leave Matt alone. Matt's working. This is his, like, he's very busy. And so what you're doing at that point, you're dropping your best sales at that moment. And your order volume, if you're watching on the YouTube, your order volume will go like this, kind of plateau up a bit, and then it will skyrocket. And you will start to exceed the capacity of your warehouse to actually fulfill that order. And I know I said a lot of like 1,600 SAT words there, but basically saying like you've maxed out like the ability to ship stuff out of your warehouse. And so you're going to roll this remainder, right, of orders over day. And the question for a good warehouse is how quickly do you catch back up into that where you're starting to ship clean again, where you're not having any rollover from one day to the next. And good warehouses are watching that number of like the rollover, and you should expect to see it draw down as you're in that. And so like
let me pause you right there because I'm interested because as you know, I don't get my hands dirty in the warehouse.
You do not.
Yes, I know. Yep. East Coast Elite. You're not going to let that one go.
Never.
But so what
eating
are
your lobster rolls?
I've not had a lobster since the last time we spoke, by the way.
I didn't have brisket either.
Long overdue. I did have oysters.
All right.
But that's not what I wanted to discuss. What I wanted to ask is what are some of the things that you can do to mitigate this when you exceed capacity? What can you do? Is it just overtime and bringing on seasonal labor and just busting your butt the whole time, or are there actual other things like from a warehousing perspective, from a fulfillment perspective that you tools in your back pocket that you reach for this time of year?
Yeah. So I've been at companies that have done a lot of like different things. So one of the worst things during a sales period is like going out of stock. And so you'll do a lot of kind of inventory moves on your backside. If you have inventory you're holding in reserve, you'll push that forward so that customers can have access to it. Right. In the case of the company that I'm thinking of that I worked at, we had both a B2B side and we had B2C inventory. So those inventory piles were kept separate. During that Black Friday Monday side, we would actually move inventory from one section of the warehouse to the other, and open it up for B2C sales, because typically all of our B2B sales were done by Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So we wanted that inventory accessible to customers to come directly to us. Other weird things that surprisingly have an impact is how many packers you have at your packing station. So if you have a table that normally one person is working at, 3/4 out of the year, you might have 2, you might have 4 people working at that same table instead. Those are weird things. You might physically change the layout of your warehouse during that time frame, right? Packing tables normally come on wheels. So you'll unlock the wheels and you'll shift them. to make a much smoother like throughput and like have less distance to travel for your packages and in movement. It's weird things like that that really that like take on surprising meaning as you're pushing volume through, right? So an improvement of like 1 second per package is not a whole lot when you're doing 100 packages a day. But when you're doing 10,000 a day, that's 10,000 seconds. That's a lot. I don't do math, but that's a lot of seconds. I'm assuming it's at least an hour. Um,
We'll get back on that one, folks.
Let Bill, the analyst who gets paid a lot of money, figure that one out for me while I continue to ramble. Like little things like that have a lot of impact. But most of the time, you're going to bring on a bunch of temps to just put more labor into the warehouse, and then you'll extend hours. So you might run 1 or 2 shifts at 8 hours. So you're getting like 16 hours of work in a day. You'll probably open up a third shift, which is really going to be just for replenishment. The company that I was working for, that I was starting to work at 3 a.m. Obviously, we didn't have that shift normally, so we had different teams. We had like 8 teams that we staggered. So each hour, a new team was coming on, getting fresh, and sort of moving around the warehouse. And so it was a lot of stuff. So a lot of the other things that you'll really start to look at that don't normally matter is the rates at which different teams are doing different operations in the warehouse. So you don't, where I'm going with this is that you don't want your pickers exceeding the ability, right? Picking more stuff than the packers can pack, right? You want to keep them about even. You want to have a little bit more kind of rollover in the picking area, like stuff that's picked, ready to get packed, but you don't want to have too much, right? Because then you're wasting labor, and you're kind of a good warehouse manager is kind of looking and seeing and feeling the vibes around the warehouse and noticing like, okay, they need to slow down on picking. I'm going to move a couple people from here to there to move towards packing, and then from packing to shipping. You'll kind of play this beautiful dance, and it is. I know you're gonna hate this, Bill. It is all vibes, 100% like vibes. Where are we at? There's no analytics. Like there's some, but it's all like, I think we should move from here to there.
You're right.
And yeah, that's like.
I am offended by that, but yes, go
on. So you're doing that.
Minutes, by the way.
What?
166 minutes, by the way, almost 3 hours. Yeah.
There we go. So yeah, it matters. So you're kind of doing that, and you're just trying to like get stuff physically out of the door as quickly as possible. So you're doing that Black Friday through Cyber Monday. You probably have a big Cyber Monday sale, and then you'll probably taper off your sales the week after Cyber Monday to allow your warehouse time to catch up and kind of limit, like just kind of choke off a bit of demand. And then you're going to go through the rest of the holiday season, the rest of November into December. And then in December, you're going to start getting to the point where you have to ship clean, where you have no rollover from one day to the next because you're starting to hit shipping cutoffs. And you'll probably do a big sale or another kind of good sale before then, just say like, hey, this is the last drop, and you're going to like put as much gasoline into the fire as you can at that last moment to capture all the demand that is available to you to get stuff out. And you'll probably do some sort of like, hey, this is the last day to ship ground. Get your order in by X day, X time. And then you'll have the same notification another week later for 2-day shipping and the last time for next day shipping. And you're just kind of staged closer and closer to Christmas, which is what everyone cares about, getting stuff under the tree on time. You might do a free shipping promo upgrade, right? If your sales are not great. But every retailer I've ever worked for will proactively upgrade at no cost to the customer for that last day, up to next day air shipping. And that's when then the carriers get busy. So that's kind of the overview of what holiday is like. In that, there's always something that goes wrong. There's always some problem that I'm going to have to fix. Either it's in the warehouse because I don't know, like the warehouse typically will like have the WMS go down, you'll miss a bunch of orders, something crazy will happen there. For me, on the carrier side, I have had carriers get shut down from like the fire marshal because there were too many cars in the parking lot of this one carrier. Like stuff happens. It's kind of a kooky time. There's an ice storm as well somewhere in your neck of the woods, Bill, that like slams stuff. Like things happen, like mysterious cookie things. You always have to have like a second lever to pull and go, okay, no longer this one. Now, like let's ramp into this other carrier. And it's just a constant like trying to keep volume moving is the goal.
But that's supply chain, right? I mean,
Yeah,
stuff happens.
yeah, that's getting your hands dirty, Bill. That's what I'm here for. Like that's why I left the glorious and glamorous world of flying to be here in the trenches, moving volume on trucks.
You're in your place, Matt. You're in your element. I can tell.
Yeah. Here on this podcast, Bullship Podcast with Bill and Matt.
It's been great bullshipping with you, Matt.
Do we have any? So, like, did that answer your questions? I feel like that's just sort of like I was spent a lot of time overviewing.
I mean, that was a lot of overview, and actually, one thing that maybe for another episode we should delve into a little bit, because you talk a lot about demand shaping, which makes me think that you're actually coordinating with your sales teams or you ought to be much more so than I would think when you think about supply chain, you would expect, right? There's whole, obviously, sales and operations, S&OP is a whole discipline in and of itself, but you've really kind of like hinted at that. It might be interesting to talk in a little bit more detail about what that actually looks like, because those organizations are often at odds. And I'm saying this, we're at time, so I can see you wanted to like go on another 5-minute tangent here. I'm going to prevent that because our dear listeners have tolerated us for 33 minutes already. And we want to leave them hungry for more, Matt.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, maybe I will give Bill some time to spotlight next time. And then after that, then we can talk about the joyous brotherhood between marketing and the supply chain.
Wonderful.
And trying to hound them down. Do we have any news articles that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I had something. We're already over time. We'll save it for next time. We're still figuring out the podcasting thing, so we'll say no supply chain chatter this time, but definitely the next one.
Okay. All right, we're at time. Thanks so much, Bill. Enjoy having moments of your time. I know that they are important and very expensive.
I'll take that as a compliment, Matt. I enjoy those backhanded compliments from you.
That's the only kind of compliments I give, so you better enjoy them.
I gathered that.
Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening to the Bullship with Bill and Matt. It's been quite the day.
We'll see you next time.